Welcome back, race fans, to another episode of Buckle Up and Ultra Running Conversation. Mandy, how are you?
I'm doing good, Brian. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Is it hot?
Busy.
Is it hot over there? Is it hot out there?
So hot. It's not as hot as Death
How
Valley,
hot?
but it
Come on. I was going to say
feels
how
like
hot. Come on.
like 102, I think, yesterday. It's
Oh
ridiculous.
my gosh. Just add
How
like
hot is it
22
there?
more degrees to that. Add 22 more degrees to that. It's 124 this past week in Death Valley. That's pretty warm, huh?
It's pretty warm. I mean, I'm probably still going to complain about it being hot today, but I'll think a little bit more before I do about what Croix just went through, pushing a cart, a heavy cart. I don't remember how much it weighed, getting through his
More than
third
you and
time.
I. More than you and I.
Maybe there was a dead
250 pounds. Yeah, like an ice chest of some sort.
DeathValleyRun.com.
You got to go to deathvalleyrun.com and check out what to me looks like an ice cream cooler thing that I would bring downtown and sell ice cream cones out of in the downtown market in my little town, in my little mountain town here. But he's not using it for that. At least I don't think so. Maybe he does have ice cream in there. But he is pushing 250 pounds of supplies across Death Valley, 124 miles across Death Valley, up to Whitney Portal, and then doing the final push up to the summit, the top of Mount Whitney, which was the original old course of the Badwater 135, which used to be the Badwater 146.
Yeah, this is his third attempt at this course. I thought what was really interesting about his story that I don't know that we've interviewed anyone that shared this piece. Like, we all have our reasons why we get into sport and why we do these different things. And for him, it really was to have a new take on how he inspires and motivates others. Sounds like he's been in motivational speaking for a while and writes books and leadership, but recognize that if he tried endurance events, he would have something more to bring to the table. So I think that that's kind of cool because it's always so relatable what we go through in life and business and whatever with endurance. And so it was a unique take on what got him into it, I thought.
Yeah, totally. You could just tell, like the way he talks and the way he presents himself. He is driven, he is hard charging, and he found endurance sports. And that combination always leads to these crazy feats and these crazy attempts. You're right, third attempt, but I think the first two were within 3 or 4 days of each other, and that was over a decade ago. I think it was mid to early 40s back then. He set the FKT on the route, so it's not part of the event itself. It's not part of the race, the Badwater 135 race. This is a self-supported solo journey across the desert. That's hence why he's pushing this ice cream cooler, stroller-looking thing with all his own supplies in it. He went back this past week and made his third attempt.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to his story. It'll be fun to follow along with what's next for Croix and if he ever makes it back, despite how kind of crazy and scary it got out there for him. But it's quite a story. And what do you have next, Brian? Are you feeling inspired to go trek across Death Valley now?
I think I'll just start with high school cross-country practice at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I think I'll just take it one day at a time. Maybe I'll get to that point, but I think I'm just going to take small steps to get there. I am running. I am back to training. I was at Hope Pass this past weekend, and then I ran my local ski mountain, 2,000 vertical feet on the ski mountain this past weekend as well. So 2 pretty good days in the mountains for me, which normally aren't that eventful, but knowing that I'm almost 20 weeks out from surgery, like I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like I'm back in the mountains. I feel like I'm recovering well. I am a little sore, but like that good sore. Like I'm feeling good about being sore. Like it's like sore from working my body hard. So all those things. Yeah. But Mandy, even during surgery and even when I wasn't training, I still wear my watch. What about you? Where's your watch? What? You're a traitor. Are you going to be a cyclist? Are you got like a bike computer now or something? Are you going to wear like a bike computer and no watch or what?
Honestly, it just died. It died while I was race directing Wild West. Actually, I did wear it. I ran one leg of Wild West Relay, which for those of you that don't know, I'm a race director. And the dumbest question I ever get asked is, oh, do you also run in your race? And I'm like, no, because then who's going to put on the race? Anyways, I did get to enjoy one leg of the race. I had a family, all my cousins ran, put a team together for Wild West, 200 miles from Fort Collins to Steamboat. And they had some runners drop out last minute, had some family emergencies. So we had some legs in there that needed to be run. And I just happened to get to this exchange and they were like, we're not running the next leg because we don't have anyone to run it. And I was like, I'll run it. And so Ellie, my employee, was in the van with me. So she drove that leg to the next exchange and I got to run. So I did trek that on Garmin. And then my watch died, and I just haven't found the charger. I mean, life has just been in chaos, so I don't know. It doesn't feel that important.
Mm.
But I should start training and running actually this week again. Nick and I are going to do the, what's it called? The Barkley Fall Classic in
Okay.
September, which is
In
like
is it Belt Buckle,
away.
Tennessee?
Yeah, it's at Frozen Head State Park. So the famous yellow gate, but the whole course isn't all back in there. It is on some actual trails, not just self-navigating. But I don't think you get to wear your watch for that one. Did you know that, Brian? You don't get to wear a Garmin or a phone. You actually don't get to document that race.
Not even on the Fall Classic, not even on the
Mm-mm.
fun run type of stuff. No, okay,
Nope.
all right.
No.
I
So
knew
actually, I'm just gonna
the
not put my watch
Barclays
back
itself,
on.
like I knew Barclays Marathon was deviceless, is how I should state that. But
Yeah.
I didn't know that the classics and the other smaller events were also deviceless.
That's just what Nick tells me. I haven't been on the website. That's how I roll. But
All right.
I'll get back to running, train for that, and maybe I'll see you at Flaming Foliage, marking the course soon.
Maybe I might be able to make some time for that. We'll see. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hey, this episode with Croix was a great conversation. Check out the links in the show notes to the page, the running event itself, and his social media channels and handles. I'll throw it all in the show notes. And thanks for tuning in.
Miles of dust beneath your feet, another sunrise you will meet. Pushing past the weary climb, leaving doubts and fears behind. Hear the trail call out your name, ignite that inner hopeful flame. For the journey and the view, and that shiny buckle too. Buckle up, let's start the show.
Croix Sather, thank you so much for taking some time out of your hectic drive back east to sit down and talk with us. We want to catch up on all things records and your most recent attempt at a Badwater crossing. But first off, where in the world are you currently, and where are you heading to, and how are you feeling?
I'm exhausted for multiple reasons. One of it is that I've been driving, and I drove through last night heading back east
wow.
because I just finished my attempt at crossing Death Valley. And so that was a couple days ago, and I've been driving for the past several days.
I bet with the air conditioning on, though, right? Like you're still not heat acclimating anymore?
No, I'm not heat acclimating anymore. But I did stop in the Moab Desert on the way out, which is by far the most beautiful desert I've ever been to. And that was still 107 degrees or something like that. So I didn't escape the heat for 3 days after the desert.
Well, come on. Badwater's got to be like 125. So like 107 actually probably feels like air conditioning itself.
It's certainly a lot more tolerable. It is definitely more tolerable. And this year, Badwater, Death Valley was 124, and it was the hottest day that they've had in several years.
Yeah, that makes me feel like a whip. I'm complaining about it being like just over 100 here in Colorado. I mean, we're all throwing a giant fits here. So hats off to you. This is your third attempt at Badwater, is that correct?
Yeah, it's my third attempt. So back in 2012, I had my first attempt, which I only made it 45 miles, and then I crashed and burned. It was bad right from the start. It was just nothing worked for me. My body didn't adapt to the heat, didn't take food, water, nothing worked for me. But I made it 45 miles. Then I went back 3 days later to attempt to cross it again, and that's when I broke the world record. And that was 72 hours and 55 minutes. And so this is crossing the Badwater Ultra Marathon, which is the 135 race. What mine is the 146, so it goes all the way to the peak of Mount Whitney, but I'm also pushing a cart that's filled with my food, water, and supplies. So that was, at that time, I was about 270 pounds. So I'm crossing the desert the same as the Badwater race, but I'm doing it alone. It's a race against the clock for the fastest known time, and I'm pushing this cart that weighs 270 pounds, which I then drop right before I climb the mountain. And the last marathon is a 10,200-foot elevational climb just for the last marathon after I've run 123 miles.
So I'm glad you clarified, Croix, for us that you're not doing it in the Badwater 135 event itself. This is a self-supported event. You're having to push and carry all your own supplies outside of the actual race itself, right?
Yes, exactly. And this is totally separate from that race, and it's a little bit longer. And the idea of this race is that it's July or August to be the world record. and it has to be self-contained. So I can't get help from anyone for any reason. I have no crew to support me. I have nobody giving me ice. There's no van following me down the road to support me in a way. No massage, no rest. It's me pushing the cart, and that's what makes this so difficult. So I'm one of 5 people that have ever completed the self-contained course. Marshall Ulrich, legendary Marshall Ulrich, he was the first one to ever do it. And then Lisa Bliss was the second one, the first woman and the second person to ever do it. Then I was number 3, and I broke Marshall's record by almost 5 hours. And then there was another woman, Dusty Hartman, I believe her name is. And then Bogey, his nickname is Bogey. I don't remember his legal name. I was number 3, Bogey was number 4, and then Dusty was number 5. And here's the part that kills me, or used to anyway, is I go and I break Marshall's record that had been there for 13 years. I finally break the record, and I take the record down by almost 5 hours. As I'm coming down the mountain, Bogey is going to the course, and he's about to start it. And we happen to cross paths in Badwater Ben Jones' house. We happened to cross paths on the same day because he had tried it several times before, the most recent time 3 weeks earlier. And he had heard about me crash and burn 3 days earlier, and I went right back. He's like, well, if Croix can do it 3 days later, he had tried it 3 weeks earlier, and now he came back. And he broke my record just 4 days later. So I only held the world record for 4 days technically. And so that's always bothered me. And I've wanted to go back ever since. And this past weekend was that time. That was my chance to go see if I could break the record again. Now at 55 years old, so 13 years later.
Croix, we've actually had Marshall Ulrich on the show in the past. He's a good friend of mine through Leadville and Colorado connections, all the things. And just a wonderful guy. He and his wife Heather, just phenomenal people, just outstanding people.
Incredible people, super humble, beautiful souls, amazing people.
Yeah, and I need to go out and do their Route 66 race. It's on my bucket list. It's on the top 10 of my list. I have to get out there and do it before I'm not able to do it. But Croix, so you
that
broke
100-miler too?
It's a little bit farther. I think it's probably about 120, 135. It's a little. Okay. It's slightly more than 100 miles, if I'm not mistaken. A little more road, a little flatter, and a slight bit cooler, but still pretty warm comparable to other races in the States. You broke his record by 5 hours. Now, Bogey, how much did he break your record by just 4 days after you said it?
When he did it 4 days later, he broke it by just over an hour. I think it was an hour and 20 or hour 30 minutes or something. So he just slightly beat it. But he did go back the next year and attempt it again, which he had a much slower time. I forget, 80-some hours. And then he went back the following year, so 2014, and that's the current record, where he did it in 57 hours and 18 minutes. Wow. So that was my goal for this past weekend. Really fast time for pushing a 200-plus pound cart. Really fast. Yeah. Impressive time.
Yeah. And you were at 71 hours, so, I mean, he's knocking 12 hours off or so?
Yeah, whatever the math is, it's a lot faster.
Sure.
Yeah.
A significant amount, yeah.
So, Croix, I'm guessing you didn't just jump into sport and go straight to a unsupported Badwater crossing. So we always, as ultra athletes, we always get asked why. So I want to know why you chose that, why you've chosen that as one of your adventures, but also take us back and tell us how you got into the sport and kind of what brings you to this space.
I almost did kind of jump into it. Not the 130, not the 146 immediately in Badwater, but a year before I ran across America, I wasn't a runner at all. And I had heard about Stu Middleman running across America. I'd watched a video on him, and I had never met him at that point. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, but I wasn't a runner. So I had trained for a year, and then I was running across America, running a marathon a day. And that was all inspired by Stu. But to be able to do that, I actually met Stu in New York City, and I went to one of his running clinics. And I asked him to mentor me, which he did. And he taught me the difference between running one marathon and running one a day. And as you guys know, it's a totally different strategy. And so then I'm in California starting my 100 marathons in 100 days across America. And then as I finish that up, I'm asking myself, what's next? What's harder? What could I possibly do? And the only thing that I knew of at the time that was harder than running a marathon a day was running the Badwater race. And not the regular race that people are crewed with, but to run it solo self-contained, like Marshall did back in 1999. And so that's what I set my goal on. So a year to get to run across America, then another year of training to run Badwater. And so I only had 2 years of training to get there. But I was a machine at that point. I was 41 years old and I was a machine because I had literally been running for 2 years nearly every single day and running long distances every single day. So I was in incredible shape. And it was pretty spectacular how fast I got there and how well I was, especially at my age and being a non-runner. But as you guys know, I'm running much, much slower than, say, a person running a single marathon. I'm never going to qualify for Boston Marathon. I'm not that kind of runner. I'm the slow guy. I'm the guy who just, chugs along, keeps going forever. And those are the kind of races that I enjoy and I'm good at. And you'll never see me in Boston, so no worries there.
Yeah. So are you doing other more conventional races as well? I mean, you've got kind of two really unique experiences, self-supported. Are you signing up for other races around all of this? And
I used to, and I did Leadville Marathon with Marshall Ulrich. We actually ran it together, just as a fun thing. We just did it for fun, for kicks. So I did that one. I've done a New York City Marathon several times. I think I was 3 times, and I was sponsored into that. And I had done a bunch of other ones, and I've done several Ironman as well since I started running. In fact, my first official marathon ever was during an Ironman race, which was part of my training to get to run across America, which was kind of a cool thing. Super slow. I think I was 7 hours or something on that one. It was ridiculously slow. But now I don't do any more of the official races like that anymore. Now it's just, I came out of retirement to try to break the Badwater record again. And those are my things. It's just doing these extreme adventure races. They're more fun for me than a regular marathon.
Croix, I could totally relate. I don't think I've met another person until just this very moment that did their first marathon and then Ironman. But I actually am exactly the same. I've ran a 50K and farther before my first official marathon, but my first official marathon was in an Ironman distance race.
Wow, okay. Very cool.
Yeah, so we have that in common. Croix, you mentioned that you started at 40, right around 40 years of age. What were you doing prior to that? What was the impetus to challenge yourself? It sounds like the challenge became running, but was there some sort of life change going on just prior to that kind of shifted your attention to getting out there and seeing what you're made of?
There was. I grew up as a carpenter. My dad was a carpenter. My brothers, my uncles, we were all carpenters in my family. So that's what I became. And I did that from when I was 16 years old until in my mid 30s. But in my mid 30s, I started looking at my dad and the other guys on the crew, and they're in their mid 50s or so at that point, and they're all beat up. And I'm like, that's not the life I want. And so I was looking for something else. And that's when I started transitioning to becoming a professional speaker. So, keynote events for corporations. And in the process of doing that, I realized that my competition was so stiff, so incredible. I would be going against, NFL quarterbacks and astronauts and business moguls. I was like, how do I stand out? So I was looking for something, but I didn't know what it was. And that's when I saw the video for Stu Middleman. And I'm like, that's it. One, it's the coolest thing I've ever heard of, because I had no idea people did this kind of stuff. Like, that is the coolest thing ever. And so that was what got me into running. And what got me into speaking was going to a multi-speaker event on real estate, and Tony Robbins was speaking. And when I saw him speak, that was what was like, from being a carpenter, I was like, I want to do that. I want to be like that guy. I didn't even know you could speak from stage and make money. My dad was a pastor and my grandfather was a reverend. And that was the only experience I ever had with public speaking. I didn't know it was actually a career until I saw these guys on stage. And that was what changed the direction of my business career. And then in that journey, that introduced me to Stu Middleman and ultra running. And that changed my direction. So 2 serendipitous events, absolutely random, or maybe not, depending on what your beliefs are. And that brought me down the journey that ended up where I am today. At now 55 years old, trying to break the record in Death Valley again.
Corey, I'm curious. I share my story and speak kind of on more local levels, and mine has always really been formed through business ownership and really through running from day one. I'm curious, from your perspective, like, how much has your messaging changed, and what were you using in your messaging before endurance was a part of it? So you were speaking before endurance was a part of your life. How different is that messaging now that you've got these experiences under your belt?
The messaging is very similar. It's always been about following your dream and living life full out. And some variation, that's always been the message. And now, after this race that I just had this past weekend, it's still similar, but it's taking a little different form. Because I'll give you the spoiler alert here. I didn't beat the record, and I didn't even complete the race. I DNF'd this past weekend. It was 124 degrees, the hottest day they've had in years in Death Valley. Because of the way the permits work for Mount Whitney, this was the day I had to race. I didn't have a choice. So I had entered the randomized permit process back in March, I think it was. And I happened to get August 7th. So then back it out by 2 days. That's August 5th is my start. And so that was the day. The funny thing is that the Badwater race was a week earlier and it was 12 degrees cooler. And this coming week, in a couple of days, it's only going to be 102 for the high with 86 for the low. So had I got the luck of the draw on those cooler days, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But this is the way these races work. You race on race day, and that was my race day. So now it's the messaging, to answer your question, is still the same, but it's changing a little bit now. So my motif or motto is don't let your dream die. And I was asked right after I DNF'd this past weekend, does that negate this idea of don't let your dream die because you didn't break the record, you didn't even finish? And I don't think so at all, because I went after that dream. And at 55 years old, it's getting kind of up there for doing this kind of a race. Not that 55 is old yet, but for this kind of race, yeah, it's moving in that direction. So I did go after it. I attempted it, and an itch that I've had since Bogey beat my record back in 2012 and then 2014 again. I've always wanted to go back, and now I've done it, and now I've scratched the itch. And frankly, I don't know if I'll ever go back to the desert or not to race. Maybe. I'm not saying it's off the table, but likelihood is that I'm never going to go back. It's just too brutal. It beat the crap out of me. It's a brutal location, and it's a brutal race pushing that cart. And so I don't know if I want to go through that again. And if you ask March Ulrich, he sent me a message. If you ask March Ulrich or anybody else who's tried this stuff, they're just like, this is the most insane thing. So if Badwater Marathon, the official race, is the hardest race in the world, what does it make my race when I don't have a crew? The hardest race? I don't know. David Goggins hasn't even done this race. That's how hard it is.
I'm sure you can change your messaging a little bit, though, because as we all kind of agree as we go through these, the end goal isn't always really what you're going to get out of it. And maybe you will go back, even if you're not going to break your record, but maybe there's some other life lesson you've left out there, or some other experience, right? Like the finish line isn't always necessarily the end goal or the finish line. It's the experience and what you're going to squeeze out of it.
Well, let me dive into that, because this race was very different than the other two I've done. And it was different from anything else I've ever done. I was on pace when I started. So it's 107 degrees at the start line in Badwater Basin. And I needed to maintain a 3.1 mile an hour speed, miles per hour, to be able to beat the world record, including my stops, my race, my bathroom breaks, filling my water, doing everything. Everything had to be 3.1 miles an hour. Now that sounds really slow, but when you're pushing a cart and you average in your stops, it's actually, you got to be going relatively fast. And so I'm on track. I'm on track to mile 20, no problems. I feel amazing. I'm like, this is it. I'm taking this record down. This baby is mine. And then for mile 26, I'm starting to show a little fatigue earlier than I expected. I'm thinking mile 40, 45 is when I'd start feeling fatigue. By the time I got to around mile 34, 35, I'm crashing and burning now. All of a sudden, like really quick, I go from feeling amazing to now all of a sudden I'm ready to collapse. And this is right at the peak of the first long climb. It's not the big one going up to Towns Pass yet. This is the one prior to that. But it's a long miles and miles and miles going up this relatively gradual climb. But you're pushing a cart that weighs 250 pounds. And I get to a quarter mile of the peak and I can't make it. And the guys, I have a team there that's just in case of emergencies and stuff, and they're filming it. I have the whole film crew and everything, but they can't help me in any way. And so they come up behind me and they're just like, dude, what's going on? And I was like, I can't stay cool anymore. I'm not keeping food down. I can't stay cool. I'm dehydrating. There's just nothing's working. And I was on point with food. I was on point with dehydration. With hydration. I was on point with electrolytes. I was doing everything correctly, but just all of a sudden the heat got to me. Just 124 was just too much. And it was when the sun came from behind me to in front of me. And when that sun started beating on my face, that's when I lost control of my body maintaining temperature. I took a little bit of a rest, doused my head in ice water, and I pushed my way up to the top of the hill. I forced more food down me, mostly like fruits and stuff like that. So I was forcing extra sugars down, and I forced extra electrolytes down, more than I needed. But I was like, I got nothing to lose at this point. And I started to feel good. And now I'm jogging down the hill and I'm making time and I'm still on pace. I'm still doing I'm doing, I think, at 3.2 miles per hour, even with the brakes and a repair to my cart, because my cart had issues with it. So even with the brakes, I'm still maintaining pace. I'm like, this is good. Maybe I could do it. Nightfall's coming. And this is right before the climb to Lone Pine. I'm sorry, to Towns Pass. And I'm just about to get to Stovepipe, and I'm really, really close. It's 9:30 at night, I think it is, and I'm ready to collapse again. I'm staggering, and my crew comes up to me, and they're finally they just interrupt me. They're like, "Dude, are you okay?" And we're having a conversation for a couple of minutes. The camera guys are trying to do their thing, and I'm like, "Just leave me alone. I'm going ahead." And they ran ahead and they actually stopped me. They're like, "We need to talk. You can't keep going." And they convinced me that I was in a very dangerous place and I should stop. So my Scott Smith, he was the producer and also my coach, my mindset coach. And he gave me the logic, the reasons why I shouldn't keep going. And then the sponsor, Colin, he came up to me and with this brotherly love look, he's like, "Dude, you need to go home. You need to stop so you can go home to your kids again." It's like, you're not gonna survive. And they convinced me to stop, and they were right. And so we go to Stovepipe, we go to the restaurant. I'm sitting in the restaurant, which is air conditioned. Maybe 10 minutes later or so, and I used to be a paramedic and a firefighter, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "Crap, this is bad." My body temperature was still increasing while I was in the air conditioning. And I knew what was happening. And this was really, really bad. And so we went out. I asked one of the guys, walk with me, because I was afraid I was going to literally die right there. And I was afraid I'd pass out once I walked out the door and I got back into the heat. I was going to douse myself with ice water again to keep my core temperature from going into heat stroke. I was right on the border of a heat stroke. There was a pool right there at Stovepipe Wells, right next to the restaurant. So I'm like, let's go into the pool. And the pool was cool, not cold, but cool. And I sat into the pool. My skin temperature is getting cold, but my core temperature is still going up. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack right there. My heart literally felt like it was going to explode. And I was scared. And I've come close to death too many times before. I've never been scared of dying before. This is the first time in my life. And I've come damn close before. And I didn't know what to do because there's nothing to do. There's no medics there. There's no ambulance. There's nothing until you drive back to Vegas, or at least drive back to Pahrump. And nobody wants to go to the Pahrump hospital. Everybody wants to go to the Las Vegas hospital, which is 2.5 hours away. And my crew had no medical experience. And so they wouldn't have known what to do. And I just stayed there in the water, focusing on my breath, calming because I was panicked, of course. And so I was like, I just have to relax. And I stayed there for another 10 minutes or so. And my core temperature starts coming down. And I was like, phew, okay, now I'm probably not in imminent danger, but I still have to be careful. Go back into the restaurant. Of course, I can't eat anything because my body wants nothing. We get into the car. We're driving back to Las Vegas. Air conditioning is blasting. And I'm getting waves of my core temperature still rising. So it's rising and going down, rising and going down. And it wasn't until we could see the skyline of Las Vegas that I finally felt like I wasn't going to have a heart attack anymore. And it was a scary ride, and I didn't say anything to my crew because I didn't want to panic them because there's nothing they could have done except drive faster. It was the only thing they could have done. And so I nearly didn't make it back to Vegas or make it back to see my kids. And so this is why I'm hesitant to go back to do this again in Death Valley, because the stakes are real. The not paramedics, the firefighters in Vegas were telling me that they'll pull people off from rescues for a 2-mile walk. They go for a 2-mile hike in 100-degree weather, and people are dying and passing out from this thing. A week before my run in Death Valley, a guy had died on a 6-mile in and out. In 2012, when I did the record, a guy had done the same thing. He had done a 6-mile in and out, and he also didn't make it back. So this is real life and death risks. And I knew that going into it. I knew that I was going to push myself until the very edge, and that's exactly what I did. But if my crew hadn't stopped me, they would have been picking me up off the street there. I never would have made it back. That hill going up to Towns Pass would have done me in. Absolutely 100% certain. No exaggeration.
I think for the listener that hasn't experienced it, I think that, I've been to Badwater. I've paced Badwater for Simon. Back in 2023, I paced him for a section, and I think I went to some little dinky little town. One of the first few stops, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But in short order, I got out of the car. I parked next to the general store. I got out of the car, and I was next to the vent where the restaurant air blower comes out. And I thought it was the restaurant air vent blowing on me. Like when I got out of the car, it was like 116, 117 degrees. And when I walked around the side of the building, I was trying to figure out why the vent was still blowing on me. And I realized it wasn't the vent at all. The vent wasn't even on. It was the actual air temperature. And it was like a hairdryer, like hotter than a hairdryer that you would use in your house. And I just couldn't believe it. Like I just thought it was unfathomable. And I have a lot of experience racing and running, doing all the things outside. And I just couldn't fathom the concept of Badwater itself during an event where we're crewing and pacing somebody. So never mind this self-supported event that you're doing, pushing more than your own body weight up the mountain, basically, from below sea level up to 14,000 feet. Plus, it's just incredible. How far did you make it before the crew made a crucial decision to pull the plug?
I was just shy of Stovepipe Wells. I made it 41 miles. Stovepipe is 43. And I wanted to continue, and these guys and I told them, I was like, you know what, fine, I'll pull the plug on this, but let me just finish and get to Stovepipe because it just is kind of symbolic, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then after talking with me a little bit more, they were like, no. And I don't know if I would have made it to Stovepipe. And had I made it, if I started climbing up Towns Pass, it would have been a mile or two pushing that cart up that steep hill that would have done me in because I didn't realize how close I was to heat stroke. I knew I was close. Mm-hmm. I knew I was redlining it, and I had been redlining it for 10 miles. I knew that, but I didn't know how hard, how far into the red line that I was going. And I was maxed out. I mean, it was brutal. It's scary. It took me after the race. Physically, I felt good the next day, but emotionally and spiritually, it took me 2 days of driving in absolute silence to come to terms with how close I came to die. Because it scared the shit out of me. It literally did. And I've done crazy stuff all my life, and this is the first time that it actually scares me to tears. I just outright bawl on occasion while I was driving home without music or phone calls or anything. It was that scary.
Well, we're glad you made it out of it. I think there's a big lesson here. That's this reminder, whether you've got crew or not, there's always this piece of us that we talk about, listening to your body and trying to make that right decision. And it's tough when you're down to the bottom of the barrel. It's hard to make rational decisions. So I think that's why it's, crew and pacers are so important in races. And thank goodness you had your support team with you there. But it's just the reminder, right? Like everyone's journey isn't someone else's journey. And that as much as we all can follow Goggins, I know Brian's got opinions about this too, but it's choosing your own version of the hard things that you do and knowing your limits and when to call it quits. And like we said, the getting to that finish line or breaking the record isn't always like the end goal. Sometimes it's just making it out alive.
And sometimes it is. And some of the listeners might be thinking, this dude's he's just nuts. A lot of people say that about Goggins and others. But when people like me are wired the way we are, this is what makes us feel alive. And this isn't for everybody. Just running a marathon or even a 5K isn't for everybody. But these are the things that bring us alive. And running the Badwater self-contained is the most extreme version of what brings me alive. And this goes all the way back to being a kid where I just wanted to be seen. I just wanted to be significant. I was bullied as a kid. I felt invisible. And so these are just manifestations of that childhood drama. And I had a great childhood for the most part, but there was that feeling of being invisible. I was a little kid and I got bullied by the big kids. Nothing dramatic, but it was just, you're the little guy, you get picked on by the big guys. And so it's been the same thing. And I didn't realize it until the drive home the last couple of days that I realized that this is what I've been fighting all my life is that feeling of being invisible. And pushing myself now to this level, to this red line, this so far that it literally almost was my last breath, that maybe I finally conquered that demon. I don't know, we'll see, but maybe this is what finally heals that inner child that we all carry.
Yeah, I think you. I'm going to say, it sounds like you found your limit this week, right? Out there on the course, and luckily somebody was able to show you that was the limit for you, or it could have ended. Or we might not be having this conversation, quite honestly, right? It just comes down to that. But I think there's other things that we can do. Us being atypical athletes, of like, okay, like what's a different thing you could do? Can you go the other extreme? Can you go, run the Iditarod, or, just something different, like how else can you challenge yourself? And I think as that atypical athlete, we're always going to be searching for that as long as we're able to move, right? So even at 55, even though you're really old at 55, because I'm 52, so you're way older than me. Even at 55, though, I think you'll find, something else. And is there any inkling of that? Is there something else that's kind of like sitting in the back of your head that maybe is a new project coming up that you might be interested in?
In my 2 days of solitude of driving, I realized something else. While Badwater is the extreme version of that child wanting to be seen, there are other things that I've done that give me that same sort of thing, but not to that extreme level, that don't risk my life in any way. And, so learning a new language, I speak Spanish nearly fluent now. That was amazing. Traveling gives me a similar kind of feeling. Not as much adrenaline and stuff, of course, but it still gives me. So there are other ways for me to express this, and it doesn't have to be doing this. So this may be retirement for me, or it may not. I don't know yet. I'm only not even 3 days out of this, and so I need time to figure this out. One part of me wants to go back next year and try it again, just to see. And another part of me says, you're an absolute idiot if you ever go back to it again. And I don't know who's right now. That's something I need to think about for a while and figure out. And you guys are the first ones I'm talking post race. And so, maybe we come back to this in a year to figure out what did I actually decide. And I think most people who do these kinds of ultra marathons or skydiving or any of these other extreme sports, they all go through a similar kind of thing when they either lose or come close to death is this really, really worth it? And I don't think it's one or the other. This is something I was pondering over the drive too, is I don't think it's whether. It doesn't have to be, family's the most important thing. Yes, that's true. Getting home to my kids who are 18 and 20, who I love more than anything in the world. Yes, that is absolutely super important. But it doesn't mean that's not the only thing important. There is both. There can be both. And for people like us that are wired this way, there is no one or the other. It is some version of both. Yes, kids will always be the most important. Your spouse will always be the most important. But you can't ignore the other part, because then that's, to me anyway, that's your soul dying a slow death. And, for me to get a corporate job, that would be my soul dying. For me not to do these sort of extreme things, that would be me dying while I'm still alive. And is that any better? For me, that would actually be worse. And I would much rather push myself to the edge. And if something did kill me along the way, then that's just who I am. And I can't ignore that, because that's not being true to who I am. And people won't understand that, and I get it, and I don't expect them to. But people who are like me will totally relate to that, because it's who they are as well. And we're a rare group. We're odd people for sure. And that's absolutely perfect, because there are other people that are super structured and organized and make lists and have everything planned months and months in advance. I'm the anti-plan guy. I planned for the race here. I was doing everything perfectly because this is so important. But generally, I don't plan anything except for what is critical. But there are other people that just love to plan. I'm not that guy, and I'll never be that guy.
That's funny that you said that. That just made me remember I had a dream that actually was a nightmare the other day. I woke up the other morning and I had a dream that I had to get a corporate job. And I was like, oh my God, I have to get a job. And I was like, nope, it's not real. You're still your own boss doing your own thing. But I mean, I still resonate with that, because it's, we choose these things in these lives for whatever we're trying to seek, whether it's validation or healing trauma or whatever. But it is kind of fun too, when it can ebb and flow, right? Like you can choose times in your life where like the extreme is jumping out of an airplane or really nearing death at an endurance event. And then you could have another month where extreme is how many books can you read and learning a new language. It doesn't always have to be gung-ho, life-risking, endurance events. It's healthy, I think, for us to go up and down with it and not try to kill ourselves all the time. I mean, right now I'm running without my watch. My watch has been dead for a week, and I don't even care to charge it. So I'm running, but I'm not tracking it. Not really training for anything. It's kind of nice when we can just take a step back from those extreme things every once in a while and find new ways.
I've never run with the watch, almost never run with the watch. I've
Really?
always trained by intuition and listening to my body. I don't have iPods on when I'm running. I never listen to podcasts or music or anything. It's just me and the running because I'm so connected with like we all are, you know, with business and phones and computers and everything. I'm on the computer all day long for work. And so this is my solitude. It's my meditation. It's my break from life. When I go out for a 2-mile run or a 10-mile run or a 50-mile run, this is my solitude. And I love it. And it's why I don't carry a watch unless I need to time myself for some reason, like Death Valley. I had 2 watches on. I had a GPS, not spot tracker, but the Garmin InReach. And then I had my watches. I had my watch as well. Because you need 2 verifications for the record. And so that was my verifications. Other than that, nope, I'll go run. Although as I've gotten older, I have taken my phone with me just in case. Because I've had a couple of injuries and there's been a couple times where I've pushed myself so hard just in training is like, you know, this is probably pretty dumb not to even have a phone with me. So I do carry a phone. I just don't use it.
Just for all the listeners, so they can get a perspective, I actually live by my watch. And I can't get out of it. I have a burned-in tan line like Mandy's trying to show us. But
mine's gone.
If you guys are wearing a watch, how do you know how far you've gone? Like, how do you even know how far you've ran? Like, I can't even fathom it. But I do appreciate the disconnect and all the things you guys are suggesting. I do understand that as well. There's times in my life where I like to listen to music and listen to the podcast and be connected on my runs. And then there's times where I can just completely leave it and just use the watch solely without looking at it and go out and adventure as well. So I appreciate that as well.
Well, I think it's kind of fun to I was wondering, do people follow you on Strava? I think it's kind of fun sometimes to surprise people. Like you've been off Strava for a couple of weeks, but then they see you running and it's like, I'm still running, just not on Strava. So I'm guessing, Croix, you don't have Strava, like you don't have followers following your training runs on Strava?
I just joined Strava in January when I started training for Death Valley this summer. And so all of my followers on Strava are from Colombia where I live part-time. And so it's only the local run group that I was running with down there. They're the only ones that follow me. Otherwise, I'm essentially invisible because I've never used anything like that before. Just run. And post-run across America, I was so in tune with my body that I could tell you my time and my distance and my pace within like 1% of what it actually was. Because I would wear a watch every once in a while and I knew exactly where I was. I'm not quite that in tune anymore. And I don't care because I just go out for a run. And if for some reason I care about my distance or anything, I'll just go and like retrace it with Google or the car or something like that. And so it's like, oh, today I ran really far and it's a new route. So let me see. And then, you know, I'll go do that out of curiosity sometimes. But yeah, I just love being disconnected.
It sounds like you don't place all your eggs in the same basket, Croix, and I appreciate that as well. I think it's easy for us in this day and age to hyper focus on one particular thing, myself included. So you had this unsuccessful attempt here, of course, life-changing experience. You're just a couple days out from it. I mean, like hours out from it. Quite honestly, you still haven't even made it back to Connecticut yet, and you're on your way there currently. But is there something else coming up at the end of this year, next year? Other projects that you're working on? Other things that have already been in the mix or that you're considering doing?
Yeah, I'm very blessed on this one. I wouldn't have made it to the start line because this has been a very, very expensive endeavor to get to the start line. Between the building the car, everything you need for it, buying the Garmins and the watches and everything. It was just a huge undertaking. And I had local handyman that had sponsored me. So I had an official sponsor that had paid my whole way. And we're also partnering after this to make it a documentary and a book. And so that's going to be the rest of my year is the podcast, the media, meeting with run clubs and things like that. And that's all part of the sponsor with these guys. Colin Sprake and local handyman have just been amazing people to work with. I'm friends with Colin. We've been friends for 15 years. And when I was posting on social media, you know, locally for people to sponsor me, and my friends did, you know, a couple $100 here and there. And my friends are sponsoring me, and he calls me up. He's like, you know, Croix, I want to be part of this. And so we talked about it for months before he finally decided, like, we're in. We're going to be the official sponsor. But I couldn't ask for somebody better because Colin was the one in Death Valley that was there. And he was the one that looked at me instead of a sponsor like, you know, don't stop, keep going. Colin was a friend first. He was like a brother from another mother. And when Scott was talking to me, and then I looked at Colin, and I expected him to have a look of disappointment. And had he had the look of disappointment, I don't think I would have turned myself off. And I think I would have kept going. But he looked at me, and in his eyes, he said something, and I don't remember what it was because I was semi-delirious at that point. He looked at me, and the look in his eyes was just, dude, please go home to your kids. And that's what stopped me from running, is just that look of empathy and love and caring. And so to continue this journey with them, to get the book and the documentary out there, and we're talking to one of the most important documentary makers in the world right now, and we're in negotiations with them to figure out how to make this happen. That's the rest of my year. So I can get that same adrenaline rush that I get from Death Valley in writing books. And I've written several books already. So I get that. It's in a different way. So that's why I'm on my computer all day. I'm just like, I'm typing away. My life is very boring most of the time, except for when I'm doing these crazy things. And so I have both as Mandy was talking about, and you need that. It's seasons. I have seasons of writing, seasons of doing crazy stuff, seasons of traveling. And so that's how my life is. I can't imagine living corporate. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that for people who that's aligned with their soul and that's aligned with their constitution. It's not for me. And so I need the variation and stuff like that.
That's great. So how can everyone kind of follow along with what else you've got going the rest of the year? Where can they find you? I mean, your website's full of TED Talks and books. What's the best resource for people to tune in?
Because my name is spelled so differently, nobody's going to know how to spell Croix Sather. Probably either version of, first or last name. So deathvalleyrun.com talks about the race. We haven't updated it yet from the DNF, but we will, and we'll put a trailer on there and the videos. It'll all go there. It's an easy name to remember. It's just about my run and stuff like that. There's nothing else on there. So deathvalleyrun.com is the easiest way, or find me on social medias from the links in your podcast.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thanks, Croix. We'll drop in the Death Valley link as well in the show notes and some other links as well to your social media pages. We want to wish you a safe rest of your trip home. I know you're pretty close to Connecticut. I think you got another 8 hours of driving. Hopefully today, tomorrow, you can get that knocked out and get some well-needed rest. Keep the air conditioning blasted. And thanks again for your time in the podcast.
I appreciate you guys both very, very much. And this was a great podcast to be the first one post-race, DNF or not. It still was an absolutely great podcast. Thank you both. Great questions, too.
Yeah, thanks, Croix. Thanks for sharing all the takeaways.